Hey guys, so this is the video for the 7th grade quarter two benchmark review. So hopefully this will help with the test. All right, so the first one is asking for the measure of angle SBT. So if I look at my picture, SBT is here. So I'm trying to figure out what that angle measurement is, SBT. So the piece of information I do know is that this whole thing has a supplementary relationship, which means that these three angles, 1, 2, 3, add up to 180 degrees. Basically, I know that x plus 35 plus 50 is an equal 180. Which means if I keep solving, x must be 95. So number 2 is similar, except this time we're talking about a complementary relationship. And so complementary means that two angles or more add up to 90, the right angle. So that's what I know here about 1 and 2. So it says 1 is 25, and we're trying to figure out what angle 3 is. So I have to use the idea that 25, so 1 plus 2 equals 90. So angle 1, angle 2. Which means that this is 25 plus something equals 90, right? So that's 65. That means this is 65. And then now I can say this whole thing is 180. So 2 plus 3 equals 180. And since 2 is 65, 65 plus something is 180. Means if I subtract there, this will be 115. So you're having to use these two relationships, supplementary adding up to 180 and complementary adding up to 90. So this is a straight line. And a right angle. All right. Some of the problems on your test is about price, finding the price, which honestly should be pretty easy. Coach Stanley bought uniforms for 10 players. So there's a shirt and then a pair of shorts for each one. It's going to be 10 shirts plus 10 pairs of shorts. So this would be $125 plus $135, 260. So it doesn't say anything here about tax or anything. So Linda earned $525 and spent $375 one week. The next week she earned $440 and then spent $225. So how much money did she have left after 2 weeks? So she started with $525. So this is week 1. And she spent $375. Almost couldn't read my own handwriting. All right, so 5 minus 5 is 0. So $1.50 is what she had left over. So then she has $150, right? That travels over to week 2. And so then she earns $4.40 on top of that. And then she spends $225. So this is how much she has left. $3.65. Hopefully that seems easy. All right. It's asking which expression is equal to 12n minus 6x plus 48. So you can't see it because it's so small, but that's what it says here. So then if I rewrite these, that's really what it's asking me to do, is rewrite them all. I have 12n plus 2x plus 48. That's the same. 12n minus 6x minus 24. Not right. 12n minus 6x plus 48. So notice I had to multiply to 6. with 8 inside the parentheses. This is good, right? But let's just double check. Oh, this one's 6 and x plus 48. Yeah. So being able to simplify expressions. What's the value of x for this equation? Which you could take these numbers and plug them in here if you wanted to check, or you could just use some of the stuff that in class is solving. So if I divide here by 40, 600 divided by 40, which reduces to 60 over 4, which equals 15. Okay, so the next one is an inequality, but it works similarly to this. 5 minus 3x plus 3 is less than or greater, or less than or equal to 13. And so then if I am still looking at this as like two sides, I can combine 5 plus 3 to get 8. 8 minus 3x is less than or equal to 13. Then I can get rid of this 8, since it's invisibly a positive, I need to subtract 8. And so don't forget that negative sign stays with the 3, which is actually going to create the issue here, right? Because when I divide here by negative 3, if I divide or multiply by a negative number, then this has to switch directions. So you have to switch the inequality. So this would end up being x and then negative 5/3, but then this would be switching to greater than or equal to. So if you look through the answers, luckily, there's only one with the right fraction there, so the symbol doesn't matter as much. Sweet. All right, I put another inequality in so we could practice. This one's a little easier. So here's my two sides. I'm going to simplify that. 5 minus 8 is negative 3. And then since I'm adding 4, I'm going to subtract from both sides. But this time, I don't have to worry about taking anything, dividing anything, or multiplying anything away from my variable. So I just have this z left over. And if I look, I do need to be careful. This says -7 is less than or equal to z. And this one says -7 is greater than or equal to z. So I just have to make sure I match the right symbol. Okay, this inequality, they're asking to represent the solution here. So I can tell you already, since this symbol could be equal, that means you're going to have a shaded endpoint on your graph. So this means it starts at -3, but it doesn't equal it. Same thing here. It starts at -3, but doesn't equal it. So definitely those two can't be the right answer. And so I really just need to figure out, is it less than -3 or greater than -3? So if I subtract 11 and then divide by 2, so since this is a positive 2, doesn't switch. So it's only when I multiply both sides by a negative or divide both sides by a negative. So -3 and then n. So notice my answer is negative, but that doesn't matter. So it's saying basically if I flip this around, n is less than or equal to -3, right? -3 is bigger than n. So n is less than or equal to -3. Which is this, right? So this is the less than direction. All right, Jennifer earned $75 babysitting. She went shopping and bought a shirt and a skirt and 3 pairs of socks. She paid 7% sales tax on all the items she bought. How much money did Jennifer have left? So $75 And so she buys herself a skirt. Oh, I'm sorry, a shirt for $18.50, a skirt for $22.95, and then 3 pairs of socks for $4.75. So 3 times $4.75 for my socks. 22, 12, 13, 14. So $14.25 for the socks. This is the skirt and the shirt. So I'm going to add all these up. So $55.70 is her total cost. So this is her amount of money and she's spending this much. So she has $19.30 left. It also says she's going to pay a sales tax on that. So if I think about figuring out sales tax for $55.70, I basically need to multiply this by the 7%, right? So this is 0.07. But when I find sales tax, I have to find it on the price. And so I have to basically multiply by 1.07. It's kind of like that growth factor we were talking about with growth and decay, how you have to add this to 1 to figure out what the factor is. So this is the rate that it's getting, that like she's paying her sales tax at this rate, but this is the actual factor. So if I multiply that, I'm going to cheat right now and do a calculator. Although you guys won't have access to a calculator on your test. $55.70 times 1.07. $59.599. So 59.60. So this is how much money she spent altogether instead of that $55.70. So let's subtract it. So this would be her amount left if she didn't have to pay tax, but since she will have to pay tax, this is definitely one of the more complicated kinds of things as far as financial math goes. So $15.40 is what she has. Notice 1930 is on there because they want to make sure they trick you. So it's 1930 without tax, but it is 1540 when she pays tax. Okay, circular trampoline has a radius of 8 feet. What's the area? So area equals pi r squared. So r is the radius. So it's how far it is from the center to the side. And so whatever that number is, you're just taking it and plugging it into this. And then this is asking you to estimate it once you figure it out. So this would be 3.14. So pi is 3.14. And then it tells you the radius is 8. So I'm going to put in 8 squared. So I have 64 times 3.14. Which ends up being 60.86. So if I was going to say to the nearest what? Maybe they're having you do it with 3. 64 times. Or maybe I just didn't type it in right. 64 times 3.14. Oh yeah, I didn't. See, that's the danger of using a calculator. So, which makes sense. Why would it be 60 if this is multiplying by 64? So this would be 200.96, which is so good remembrance to double check to make sure your answer makes sense. Okay. Roland wants to buy a jacket that has a discounted price of 20% off, which is not a good way to do that. So move the decimal point of the original price 1 place to the left and then double it. Divide the original price by 5. That works because 20% is really the same as splitting something by 5. Multiply the original price by 0.2. That makes sense, right? Because 20% is 0.2. So that would tell you how much the discount was. If you multiply by this, it'll tell you how much is off. And then set up a proportion with the original price and the discount price, which this is how you would do it. You'd have discount to the original price equals 20 over 100. So you're basically saying that 20% is going to be the same as how the discount is compared to the original. So, and then this is the same as 20%. So this one doesn't make sense. You can't just move the decimal point on the price to figure out 20%, right? You got to do some kind of multiplication, some kind of calculation of that. All right, value of X in this diagram. So again, this is supplementary, which means 104 plus X plus 10 equals 180. So 114 plus 2X. If I subtract 114 from both sides, I get 66. So 2X equals 66, which means X equals 33. So this is 104, 33, and then 43. All right. Same thing here. So 116 plus 30 plus Y equals 180. And then they're just asking you to pick out which expression matches how you would solve, which it doesn't equal 360 on these two. And you don't subtract them from Y, you add them on top. All right. Area. So you're supposed to figure out what the area of the shape is, even though it has these corners cut out. So usually with these kinds of problems, if you're looking like for this side here, this is 12, but then this little piece here is 3, which means that this whole thing is 15. And then same kind of thing across here. So this was 16 and this little piece is 4, which means this whole thing is 20. So if I was going to find the area without the corners cut off, all I'd have to do is do 15 times 20. That would be 300 or 3,000. 300. Early. So 15 times 20 means that this whole thing would be 300. But then if I'm going to cut those corners off, I basically just need to subtract that from the side. So here, this 4 and 3, this is a triangle. So half the base times the height. So 4 times 3 is 12. So 6. So this little piece here is 6. And then this little piece here is 4 times 3. So this is 12. So I'm basically going to take that 300 and subtract 12 and 6 from it, which ends up being 282. All right, same kind of thing here, right? So 18 times 12 is going to tell me what the total area is. And then if I look at just, you know what? Let's do it a different way, actually. 18 times 12 is not, wow, you can tell it's early. So you could look at this as a whole thing that you subtract this from, but you could also look at it as two separate rectangles. So you could add this rectangle to that rectangle. So this rectangle is 12 times 4, what I was trying to show you. So that's 40 plus 8. And then this rectangle, if this is 12 here and the whole thing is 18, that means this is 6, right? So 6 times 2 means that's 12. So this is 48 and that's 12. Which means when you add these together, you get the 60. I kind of like thinking of it as a big shape and then subtracting out the small ones. So this piece here, let's see. So 7 here and 4 here means this whole thing is 11. And then 8 here and 5 here means this whole thing is 13. So this whole piece would be 143 if it was filled, but I have to subtract out 7 times 5 and 6 times 6. So 72 is what's left once I take these quarters. Okay, a solution problem. So if I subtract the number that's farthest away, 15y equals 450. So y equals 30, which again, remember, you could just plug these in if you wanted to and see which one equals 480. Inequality. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides and then divide by 2. So I end up with y is less than or equal to 10. So if I flip that around, it matches with A. All right, which of the following is equivalent to this? So I'm going to distribute. So half of 2 is 1, but that's negative, so it'll be negative 1. And then negative and negative here makes that positive. Half of 2 again is 1x plus 3. And then negative 1 plus 3 is 2. So if I look here, this one says 2 minus x, which isn't right. That's positive x. This one says x plus 2, which positive 2, and it has 1x. This is a 1 in here. So all right, again, which one's equivalent? So I'm going to distribute and then combine my like terms. So negative 2 plus 3 is a positive 1. So 2 plus 1x again. All right, Jennifer is 4 years older than Harvey. Harvey's twice as old as Gwen. If Gwen is G years old, which expression represents Jennifer's age? So Gwen is G. Harvey's twice as old as Gwen. So Harvey is 2G. And Jennifer is 4 years older than Harvey. So Jennifer is what Harvey is, plus 4. Okay. Mr. Tillman took a taxi. The driver charged $4 for the fee and then $2 for every mile. Find the final cost if they traveled, and if well, find the amount they traveled if it's $28. So it costs $4 plus $2 for every mile, right? This is like how the bill would look, and we're going to figure out how many miles was it if it equals $28. Back 4, and so x equals 12. So if I look through my answers here, it's D. Okay, Stephanie sells 12 pretzels per hour. Robert sells 15 pretzels per hour. This week, Robert sold an additional 18 pretzels. Which of the expressions represents the total sales of both people? So Stephanie does 12 per hour, and I think they're representing her with an S, right? So 12S. And Robert is 15S plus an additional 18 pretzels. So if I think about totaling these up, adding them together, it would look like, oh, it must be an R. So 12S for Stephanie, 15R for Robert, plus that additional 18. I just need to match this. And be careful with your letters because they did try to trick. All right, area of a triangle is half the base times the height. So base times height here is 8 times 6. So half of 48. Mostly just an easy problem to make sure you remember the formula. Here's another one, but this time the base and the height. So base and height always make a perpendicular relationship. So that's how you know what the base and the height is. So this would be half of 39 times 48. So 936. Oh, but look, I love how these things trick me too. So this is in feet, whereas these are in inches. So we're going to have to do some converting here. Okay, let's do, all right, so we convert 48 divided by 12. That one's easy, right? So that one's 4 feet. This distance here is 4 feet. And then 39 divided by 12 is 3.25 feet. So if I'm trying to get to square feet, then this would be half of 4 times 3.25. Which equals 6.5. All right. A biologist is tracking the total population of birds in a national park over a 20-year period. The rate of change goes from negative 6,500 per year to 4,200. So it's losing birds, and then it goes to gaining birds. Which statement best describes? So the rate of change increases by this amount, decreases by this amount, increases by this amount, or decreases by that amount. So it's definitely not decreasing, right? I know for sure it's not decreasing. And then if I'm just looking at these numbers, I mean, I think just intuitively you can tell that there's about 10,000 as a difference between these, right? So if zero's in the middle and you have like negative 6,000 and something here and a positive 4,000 and something here, then you have about 10,000. Okay, temperatures this time. So at 9:15, the temperature was negative 16.9. And then at 11:30, it was negative 25.7. So just trying to figure out the difference between them. So if I was looking, on some kind of a thermometer, basically it's saying it was at negative 25.7. And then the first time it was at negative 16.9. So it really went down, right? You're just trying to figure out how far that distance is. 8.8 in the middle. So the difference between them is 8.8. Okay, almost done. 2 left. All right, so Mary takes a flight from Arizona to Alaska. In Arizona, the temperature is 101. And then in Alaska, the temperature is 11. So what's the difference between the temperatures in Arizona and Alaska? So Arizona is 101 and Alaska is 11. So I just need to subtract, right? 90. And then the last one, a group of hummingbirds sips 4 ounces of nectar during a 2-day time period. Over the next 8 days, Julie added half an ounce of nectar per day to the feeder. What was the overall change? So 4 ounces of nectar during 2 days. Right? And then after the 2 days, over the next 8 days, she added half an ounce per day to the feeder. So the hummingbirds drank this much and she added this much. So they drank 4 and she added 4. So if you're talking about how much they changed between the two, those zero. All right. Hopefully all of those made sense. I feel like I made enough mistakes to last the rest of the semester. Good luck. Let me know if you have questions.